when that hits a cell, when that light energy hits a cell, it basically turns it on and it activates those proteins to actually kind of create an assembly line of energy production. And that the end stage of that is ATP, and then a byproduct is water and things like that. So that's a very efficient system.
Hi.
Hey, Serena, how are you?
I'm so good. It's so good to see you, Dr. Berry. I'm like really clearly very excited to see you.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this. Nice to connect with you. I know we both have pretty busy schedules, so it was good that we could finally make this happen. Thanks for having me.
Yes, no, thank you so much. It seems like you're all over the globe just as much as I am. So it was amazing that we could finally get a chance to connect here and share with everyone something very special that I've recently been introduced to that you have been an expert in. And I see some people saying, "Who is this? Who is this?" Okay, so let's dive in. Normally, I do a bit of an intro, but we're all here at the same time. So while I wave to a few people, Dr. Bear, would you please do me the honor of introducing yourself and giving the audience a little bit about your journey and how we got to where we are right now, this moment, and what we're going to talk about today.
Sure, happy to do so. Yeah, I'm in my 27th year in practice, and I've been an international speaker for about 12 years now. I've done peer-reviewed and published research on light therapies, low-level laser. My practice is an integrative neurology setup, so I kind of take different moving parts like functional neurology, how we activate the system, receptor-driven systems. Bring that into the mix. I use nutrition and functional med stuff. So working with diet and lifestyle and a lot of the supplement stuff to work on that angle with the neurochemistry. And then one of my cornerstones is obviously low-level laser therapy. As a brain-based practitioner, when you look at all of the boxes that you want to have checked off for how to protect the brain, how to repair the brain, light therapies have actually been found to be one of the most substantial tools that we have in our armament to help the brain out, and not just the brain, but the whole brain body connection. So I use low-level laser as it's probably my most important tool that I have, and is aside from what I use in my brain and studying and continuing and stuff. Light therapies have arguably been my most important tool that I've added to my practice. So it's a real personal story for me too, with regards to my protecting my daughters and a genetic predilection that's in their mom's side of the family for Alzheimer's as well. So, one of the big things I wanted to do when I was looking at all these benefits on what low-level laser can do for the brain, obviously my number one goal was safety, do no harm. And so I found a company that they nailed it. There's a Goldilocks effect with light therapies. And so I'll let you chime in here. So.
Okay. So I'm just gonna pause and back up for just a second because we've got now a couple thousand people that have joined and might have missed like the first half of what Dr. Berry is saying, and he's clearly very, very humble. Dr. Berry is, you can just tell by how he's speaking and what he's describing that he's clearly brilliant. But he's a board certified chiropractic neurologist, and so that's pretty hyper specific, and I love that because just like as my audience knows, I mean I'm a nerd at heart, and I love nerding out with other people who are hyper focused on certain specialties, but then expand outward. So his practice, as he said, really integrates and incorporates a lot of what we call now functional medicine, functional nutrition. He mentioned nutrition. He mentioned these other types of therapies for expanding what he does as a specialty. And so for those of you who have just joined, we're talking about low-level laser therapy. And that has been around for a long time. And I'm going to have Dr. Berry kind of back up for a second and explain what that even is, because Dr. Berry has been so fortunate to be working with this company that we're going to share a lot about today, that I recently discovered maybe, I don't know, maybe about 8 months ago. And this this type of therapy, this type of science has been around. And so Dr. Berry is going to give us a little bit of sort of background on that for those of you who don't know, because it's not something that I've talked about here much. This is sort of our first foray into it, and really excited to educate you guys even more. And then he's going to talk about how he's has, over 25 years of experience working with different types of therapy. And this is like his number one go-to. So Dr. Berry, let me hand it back over to you. For everyone who doesn't know what LLLT is, let's give them some brief background.
Yeah, so low level laser therapy, or LLLT, sometimes you'll hear it as cold laser. Sometimes you'll see it written as photobiomodulation. Basically, it's a light therapy, and true laser is where they engineer it to be all the photons of light energy are engineered to work together in a parallel coherent waveform. So there's LED that's out there, just so people know, that's just scattered photons of light therapy. It's kind of like a red light bulb in a way. And a lot of people are familiar with LED because you're seeing it in gyms and, detox things, hair growth products, things like that. So light therapy has actually been around since the 60s, even though the field of neurology is a fairly nascent field in the grand scheme of things. But I think the best way to describe it that most people can get their head around is the idea that plants need sunlight for photosynthesis. They are light-driven, organisms, and we are as well too. We're energy organisms. So yes, you need all the right, like I use the analogy, it's like baking a cake. Yes, you want to have all the right ingredients for the cake. A good diet like you promote, good nutrition, good supplements, but you also have to be able to turn that oven on and turn it to the right temperature. Yeah. And one of the ways you activate the system is through energy. You need energy to, for everything from brain health, heart health, you name it. Energy is like the linchpin of that. And it's one of the beautiful things about this light that when you shine it on a tissue, it increases the energy output of that tissue. Now, the brain, being a brain specialist, if you will, it's very metabolically active. It needs a lot of oxygen, a lot of glucose, a lot of substrate to work from. And so if you can do anything to provide more energy for the brain, it's going to work that much more efficiently, that much, it's going to repair that much faster. So what we do is lasers. I just turned one on here. This is the new GVL. This is you can see the green and violet. We're seeing different wavelengths have different functions in the human body. But basically, think of the plant analogy with sunlight. Once we get that light energy into us, that all the other processes that we need can happen.
Yes. Okay. So I know that it was perfect timing. You just took a break. I wanted to back up really quick. I know that there's a few people like, he's so great at explaining, and you're like a teacher. So I see why you travel all over the world as an international speaker. For those people who can't yet connect, and we have talked about energy in different forms. We've talked some quantum. There's some other amazing brands that we really stand by and support that uses energy to optimize the system. So how does LLLT, what happens when it hits the tissue? Because people want to understand like okay, that's a laser. How does it not hurt me? It's not a light, so let's kind of dive a little sciencey, get a little nerdy here about what happens to the tissue when that light hits the tissue, whether it's the brain or any other part of our body.
Well, some of the newer research as part of the organelle that had is the energy. They call it the powerhouse of the cells, called the mitochondria.
Yes.
And the enzymes, there's protein enzymes that are on the wall of the mitochondria that dictate the energy. When we take in oxygen and glucose from good fats, from good proteins, good vegetables and stuff, that substrate, that glucose and oxygen combine, and they go through what's called the electron transport chain and Krebs cycle. This gets way too technical for the time we have, but what happens with that, that's where we make ATP. It's like the gasoline, the fuel supply for your cells. And so turns out that light energy, especially the first studied wavelengths was red, was the most common one. That's why you see most devices are red based. But as we've expanded our research and knowledge, we're now seeing that violet has a certain effect on the mitochondria. Green has a certain effect. And so now what we found is of those 4 rate limiting enzymes, if you will, there's 5 enzymes on that wall that are tied into making energy and utilizing oxygen. There you go. There's the red violet. Here's the green violet.
Yep.
And so when that hits a cell, when that light energy hits a cell, it basically turns it on. and it activates those proteins to actually kind of create an assembly line of energy production. And that the end stage of that is ATP, and then a byproduct is water and things like that. So that's a very efficient system. And when we don't have the right enzyme activity and the right substrate to drive the system, maybe it's a magnesium depletion, B vitamins, like all these very important cofactors for that cycle. The lasers can help offset that. Now, I still like that's taking that integrative approach. That's why we want to use certain supplements. Like what you've got some really good stuff here. Magnesium is a very common one in depletion. So we want to come at it where when you put that laser light on there and it activates that enzyme activity and you start to have more energy production, that's a big part of it. The other big things with lasers is they do things like they'll tamp down inflammation. That's a major underpinning, especially for neurodegeneration like Alzheimer's and things like that. It is rampant. Like autoimmunity in our country and in the world is just skyrocketing. And autoimmunity is when your own immune system starts to attack your own tissue because it's mistaking proteins for being a foreign substance. Well, we're seeing that a lot with brain and Parkinson's and Alzheimer's stuff. So you need inflammation, but you don't want it to be chronic and you don't want it attacking your own tissue. Well, lasers to the brain or other tissues of the body will actually turn the dial down of that inflammatory process and shut off those chronic inflammatory conditions and regulate the immune system. Lasers can repair barrier systems like a leaky gut, leaky brain.
Yes.
Lasers have been shown to actually help repair the barrier system. A big one that is huge for all of your listeners is the antioxidant system. When you think about why do we eat, one of the reasons we eat good fruits and veggies like broccoli and things like that is it helps prevent or it mops up the free radical damage that occurs. And there's terms like glutathione and superoxide dismutase and catalase. Well, lasers have also been shown to activate all of your antioxidant systems.
Mm-hmm.
So all that free radical mopping up when you laser, and whether you do the brain, the liver, the kidneys, the gut, whatever tissue, you can shine this on every tissue and actually have repair processes for that. So it doesn't even matter what specialty you're in. I'm a brain guy, but if you maybe doing more hormone stuff, things like that. Newer research shows the mitochondria is not just the powerhouse, but it turns out the mitochondria is actually involved directly in the synthesis of all your reproductive hormones, like estrogen and progesterone. It's actually the main system. The mitochondria is actually what all that DNA and RNA replication. So when you're making protein sequences, mitochondria is actually directly involved in that. So it's getting beyond the understanding that's just the powerhouse. Yes, we could just stop talking right there about that, but we're finding the mitochondria are involved in so many different cellular level things that's why you want to have tools to promote mitochondrial health and well-being. It's so important. The mitochondria actually has its own DNA that comes from mom. Your mom contributes to the mitochondrial DNA. So that tells you how important it is. So lasers are, there's over 12,000 papers on laser physiology now and laser applications. Really, it's almost one of those things where it's too good to be true. The catch is that there's a Goldilocks effect, is that you want to stay in a sweet spot because most of the literature shows that you don't want to exceed, there's a power output. It's called 10 joules per centimeter squared.
Yes.
So, some people think, well, if some laser is good, then more must be better, but that can't be further from the truth. You actually want to stay in that nice, safe Goldilocks effect, a safe zone. And that's why I attach my card to Erchonia's force, because they are the best situated true laser company, not LED, but true laser company that's a low powered or truly low level cold laser. And that way you can safely put it on the brain. You see me like a lot of lasers, you never want to go near the eyes, right? Like a class 3, class 4 laser. Well, we're actually, there's studies in the pipeline for macular degeneration, that kind of stuff. That's a whole other topic. But just to kind of illustrate how safe the Erchonia product is, putting it on the head, putting it wherever, you could use it on any part of the body in a safe way. So.
Yes, and gosh, that was amazing, Dr. Berry. I'm so grateful because you've done such an exceptional job explaining. And there's so many people here that you've already hit all those points. Fertility, whether it's good for fertility. Some people said, it's good for, why isn't it in every hospital and senior care center? And I really think a lot, obviously there's a way that traditional medicine has been done. And here we are constantly trying to give people more and more tools and also, education. It's just, if you if you are attuning to this, or if you've had an experience with a laser, or you're going to go out and try a laser, one of these low level lasers, or Erchonia, which is clearly who we feel most comfortable with and who we can stand by, and it works, tell your doctors about it. Anytime I have a therapy and I've used something, now whether or not they roll their eyes at me or not, it's really about spreading that knowledge and awareness and education. And with Erconia, I am most comfortable, even though I'm not a medical doctor, I am a practitioner, I am a clinician in that way. And so I've been able to use this not for every single client. I'm very careful, but definitely on some of my clients, definitely on myself, on my family, because these lasers are so safe, especially the way they've designed it. And if you go on their site, there's so much information. They have FDA clearance when it comes to pain, and we haven't talked a lot about that here, but I know Dr. Berry can just go into that a bit. And they're one of the few that have really done the work, done the research, and did it right. So, Dr. Ray, if you can talk a little bit about that, because pain is another um, one of the most common, I want to say, complaints or concerns when I have people come in. You hit all the major ones, and also key with autoimmune, your gut, your hormones, fertility, clearly our brain health. That's something I'm super honed in on as well. And pain, I work with a lot of professional athletes, retired professional athletes, and it's chronic for them. So this is something else I've also introduced them to and started the process, because it's been extraordinary in terms of the results. And I'm sure no better person than you to really sort of add on to that, and give even more detail.
Yeah. Just to illustrate that, I was the principal investigator of the FDA clearance on the chronic pain study. And their Erchonia laser just knocked it out of the park with this one right here, the scanning FX laser is what we use for that study. We're seeing it even with the handhelds on neck pain, like just one treatment, even the outcomes that they're getting. To your point, Erchonia has they're upwards of 22 FDA clearances now, I believe. And that's more than all other light companies
Yep.
combined. So they're the ones that are putting in the time, proving efficacy, proving, that they get actual object. And these are double blind randomized studies. This
Mhm.
isn't, this isn't anecdotal pilot studies, things like that. And another big thing, go back to the safety thing, on all their FDA clearance studies, they've never had a reported adverse event that in these studies, which is almost unheard of when you look at
Yeah, and
studies.
it's
Even with
literally
nutrition, like, yeah, omega-3, like fish oil and stuff, you see certain adverse they reported. So that's a really good safety track record, again, being in that low level. I think one of the things that you kind of touched on is that a lot of docs and a lot of patients just don't know this kind of integrative specialty exists, because a lot of people out there are suffering from, post-concussion syndrome, from, early onset dementia stuff, things like that, things that aren't necessarily amenable to surgical or pharmaceutical intervention.
Mhm.
They don't realize that there are specialists out there that do integrative neurology. And that's probably the biggest problem I face, is that just getting that word out there, like people, they'll have seen 30 specialists by the time they get to our office. So that's part of trying to get out there and educate. And the other neat thing about the seminar stuff is that I'm seeing more and more medical doctors, DOs, kind of that allopathic model, are looking for, especially with the opiate and fentanyl crisis and whatnot, they're looking for safer, effective alternatives for pain management. And here you have an FDA cleared device for exactly that, whether it's neck pain, shoulder pain, low back pain, whatever the pain source is, you can do it.
Mhm.
But again, a big thing with pain that we're finding is that if you can combine therapies to the limbic system, that survival part of the brain, yes, most of the devices say I have right shoulder pain, I can laser it, set it, and forget it. But one of the things that we're approaching pain with, just as one example, and PTSD and things like that, is doing applications to the brain to start to change the dynamic of your default mode network and your, these brain pathways that are actually keeping pain more chronic.
Yes.
And so most people are going to respond well to just the local, say it's a shoulder and elbow or whatever. But I want the audience to also start looking for docs that are going to look at cognitive behavioral therapies and EMDRs and things like
Yes.
that. But then all my docs laser the brain, even in say a chronic left knee pain. We're doing, laser applications up here. Vagal nerve
Yes.
stimulation is a big one. That's probably, I'm sure you've talked a lot about that one. we've done studies with HRV and
Yes.
laser on the vagus nerve,
Yes.
and that brain gut, the leaky gut thing, which is your major tripwire for inflammation, like LPS. When the bacteria gets into your blood and it shouldn't be in there, that's putting people into chronic states of pain as well. So a lot of times it's an orthopedic injury, but you also want to look at those systemic underpinnings that are causing inflammation, causing your body to be on fire, so to speak. And whether you're treating pain or Alzheimer's or whatever, you want to be able to have devices that tamp down that systemic inflammation. That's why I'm a huge fan of fish oil. I'm a huge fan of turmeric, NAC, glutathione, all these things, magnesium. They all help turn down that dial of inflammation.
Yes, and I'm so just to jump on that, I'm so glad. I mean, you hit all the points that I was going to bring up. It's just it's that systemic chronic inflammation that we're often unaware of, And I want to add on to the fish oil and turmeric and ginger and all these other extraordinary anti-inflammatory type foods and herbs and supplements. It's also meditation, breath work, anything that helps us regulate our nervous system. Any way that we can access, well, stimulate, our vagus nerve. I do a lot with somatic therapy as well, kind of like more hands-on body. My teachers are actually chiropractors originally and incorporate somatic therapy into their work. So, it's we don't know how often because we seem like we're fine. We show up, we took that meeting well, we took that situation well, we walked away from that discord, sort of taking the high road. But inside, how is your system functioning? And that's why I was looking to HRV. And the lasers are something that can actually help raise our HRV. Your HRV is your heart rate variability, and it tells us how our internal system is managing the stress, how our different organ systems. So we may sit here and seem perfectly calm and feel like we're calm, just our heart rate, beating a little bit faster, but it's more than that is happening in our system. And that sort of chronic challenge to our internal system to manage and modulate stress, that's what causes inflammation. So here's another incredible tool that can help support our whole body system. So whether it's, as Dr. Berry said, whether it's a pain, like a physical pain, or something that has a lot more to do with the cognition. I mean, anything that kind of trips up our system and we feel that stress that causes inflammation, anything that adds inflammation to our system from the external to the internal, anything that creates the internal to spike up. And this is just another incredible tool that we can add to our stack and safely. So, sorry, I just wanted to interject. I was so excited that
Well,
you hit all these points.
I love it because you dovetail perfectly into one of the holy grail, especially in brain rehab. Like your liver cells and gut cell lining turns over. Like it's mitotic. It will turn over and create a new tissue over, sometimes it's as little as days and that kind of thing. So but the problem with the brain is it's not mitotic. So when you lose a neuron, it's gone for life. So one of the holy grails in brain body health is neurogenesis. Yeah. Can you make new neurons, especially in the hippocampus? That's kind of the switchboard of memories, memory recall. And it's kind of like a librarian pushing the books in the right spot. Okay, I need to remember this here. I need to have working memory here, that kind of stuff. And to get new neurons there is kind of the holy grail in neuroscience research. Yeah. Well, two things have been proven in literature to actually promote neurogenesis in the hippocampus: lasers and meditation. Meditation has actually been shown to create neurogenic activity. Yeah. So one of the things I do, and as a matter of fact, I just did it, but on my quick lunch I took before I got on air with you, I will sit under my laser over my lunch and do meditation. So yeah, I'll do that. I'll stack that with meditation of gratitude. Okay. So that when you're working with depression patients, for example, you can re-hardwire that brain by thinking good thoughts and change the default mode network so you're thinking more positively. And when you do that with laser stacking, it's a very powerful thing. And so I start with that, and then I go into pure meditation of trying to clear my mind of all thoughts. Just let that the dust settle to the bottom of the ocean kind of thing. So you're not having any thoughts, and that pure openness that the true meditation is meant to be. So that's a really good idea for the listening audience, is that when you can stack therapies, put them together, it works even better exponentially. But meditation should not be underestimated. I love that, people like you are out there actually showing the benefits of that. And then, with going back to the brain gut axis stuff and the amygdala and the limbic system, just one common example is that if you have a head injury, even a mild traumatic brain injury, you're developing leaky gut within 4 to 6 hours. That's what the literature is showing now. So it's almost inevitable that you're going to get leaky gut with head injury. If you eat a lot of Western wheat, the gluten is a big one. It's a Trojan horse that punches through barriers like your gut, even your blood-brain barriers. So we don't want to have leaky barrier systems because stuff gets into your system that shouldn't be in there, and that's not good. So one of our priorities is doing stuff to repair your barrier systems, and vagal nerve stimulation, being in a good resting, digesting state, doing devices that promote vagal output, like to your point, meditation, breathing exercises, being out of stressful environments, getting out of a bad job, doing that kind of stuff. This is one of the benefits of these cold plunges that everyone's doing, that enos and post-parasympathetic effect. Now, I'm from Canada. I live in Phoenix, Arizona now. I'm never going to get in cold water again. So I'm going to find other ways to do vagal nerve stimulation. I always joke with my, I'll sing poorly. I'll hum, I'll do, gargling, I'll do other stuff like that. But yeah, so there's a lot of ways you can get into a parasympathetic state, but we are in such a stressed out environment as a whole, and the whole, I won't get into COVID, but that whole situation just, blew that up even more. Yeah. And that's another thing, actually, I love that idea to talk about that, because one of the big things that a lot of people are suffering from, whether it was post-COVID, like long haulers, or the COVID vaccine injuries that we're seeing that are quite rampant, is dysautonomia, like POTS. A lot of people out there are suffering from symptoms. They can't quite figure out why they're still having a lot of like the energy stuff. Their body's crashing, their brain's crashing. And a lot of it's because they're getting dysautonomia, meaning that brainstem area that controls the fight or flight and the resting, digesting gets hit really hard with COVID and the vaccine stuff. So one of the areas that's getting missed in healthcare right now is dysautonomia. So I just want your listeners to be aware of those terms like PODS and whatnot, that there are therapies out there that you can do with integrative functional medicine, functional neuro, lasers and stuff to actually help rehabilitate that. We're having really good success with our long haulers and that kind of stuff. So.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you brought that up. And again, it's really, anytime, I introduce my audience to another, and I call it a tool, whether it's, we have our supplements that actually stack really well here, especially when we're talking about the gut. We have the Love My Gut, digestives, we have different things. But it is the nutrition. It is the lasers, it is meditation, there's quantum, there's all these different tools. And, what we're showing you here is that here is an incredible tool that checks off so many different boxes for all different types of what I like to just call imbalances. And someone mentioned pets here. We actually use them on our fur babies. It was in the spring, spring and summer, we were able to use the lasers with a practitioner on our fur babies as well. Now, not everything is clinically proven. I just want to make sure that that disclaimer is there. But when, you look for your practitioner, when you have the right practitioner, and just wanted to add that in, because for us, our fur babies are definitely, so they are a part of our family. So,
well, if I can interject it real quick, Serena, like just to give the audience some clarity on that, we actually did a FDA clearance on, and it's in the midst of the final phases of the autism study. So we're using these devices. Yeah. And the IRB does not take that lightly. They do not want experiments on brains, especially brains of little ones. So the fact that they gave clearance to actually do this study, we had the proof of safety, the proof of concept in place from the initial study. And they said, yeah, you can go ahead and do this, because that's a big thing that, you want safety first. And one of the big things that it goes back to the mitochondrial tie. Do you know what the class action lawsuit right now is against acetaminophen for? Do you know what it's about?
No.
So mothers that are taking Tylenol have been shown to actually have increased risk of autistic offspring and neurodevelopmental delays. And it turns out that the acetaminophen is whacking those mitochondrial complexes. Wow. So all those proteins and the mitochondria, that's one of the big things. Tylenol and acetaminophen products will actually wipe out. That's one of the underpinnings to, potentially for autism. So I know there's theories out there with autism, but that's one of them as well too. So it's kind of an interesting sidebar. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I think that my community knows I'm pretty, I don't use Tylenol. I stay away from it. I know that there are times that people have used it, especially, even recently someone on our team had to use it. She wasn't feeling well. Don't freak out. Just, know that there are other options, and use it less. I mean, there is actually, and I think we might have to jump off pretty soon here. I know that we're going over time and I want to be
Oh,
respectful. Uh,
I'm fine. I don't see patients. I got another 20 minutes, so I'm good.
Okay. I also have a call after this, but I've
Okay.
got it down for a couple more minutes. Yes, we're definitely saving this live. We're going to clean it up and reshare and repost for those of you who have asked. There was actually a recent paper that just came out too about the efficacy of something like Xanax and how they've proved that it's actually 40% less efficacious than what it purported to be, even in past papers in journals. And so again, that is something that can be very helpful. But here are other tools that you can use and stack them with other more, say, natural and holistic tools that really sort of sync up and synergize with our bodies
Yeah.
naturally, in a different way. So rather than use something as an inhibitor, here we're using something that really kind of activates your body to do what it is designed to do naturally. So, yeah, so that was sort of my final words on that. Dr. Berry, what else would you like to add? We love Erchonia. Go to our post, our last post, and you're gonna learn so much more.
Yeah, and if you go and one final statement I'll make is that a lot of people are intimidated by this technology and the brain stuff, but I always tell my audiences, I'm like, can you hit this green button here, that turns it on? And I said, can you point to your prefrontal cortex? And they all say, yeah, you can do that. I'm like, well, for bonus points, point to your right prefrontal cortex, and if you can do that, you're off and running.
Yeah,
So I don't care what kind of provider, and the
that's it.
patients can do it, that kind of thing. So it's a very easy tool. I'm not trying to trivialize neurology, but I'm just saying when you have a safe dose like this, anyone could do this and improve their brain. And so I love the simplicity of it, even though it's a very advanced technology. I love that all types of providers, I've had at least 15 patients buy these devices
Okay.
in the last couple of years. So
Yes.
for those that want to know more about it, I know you'll put stuff in the, online, but if you go to erconia.com, I'll continue. I'm lecturing it all through next year again. All my seminars are there. I'll be doing, I'm actually trying to branch out on my legacy project, if you will. I'm working on a final thing right now. It's called Applied Functional Neurology. And so watch for that to come out in 2024, because that's going to help doctors of all kinds be trained in brain-based integration, doing nutrition, doing lasers, doing neurofeedback, and bringing on that true integrative approach, and taking all my great teachers that taught me and trying to put it all together in a very digestible and scalable form. So watch for that too. But I
Yeah.
thank you for having me, Serena. I truly appreciate what you're doing. Keep up the great work to get this message out to the public. And anytime you want to have me on to circle back around to some of this, I'm happy to do so.
Oh, yes. No, thank you. Thank you for coming on. And there's so much more to come. I mean, I haven't even been on with my audience in a minute. I'm sorry, you guys. I'll do it more often. But there's so much to come. There's so much that the Serena Love team is doing, the Fully Aligned team is doing, and everything will synergize. And actually, Dr. Bray, I'm sure I'll see you. I'll be coming to speak at one or two of the events for Erchonia. And so it'll be really fun, and we'll see how we can put something together. But in terms of coming on here, I think the audience seems to really love it, and there's more to learn, there's more to share. And just one more little disclaimer. You can absolutely get these, go to the site, make sure you work with someone either like Dr. Barry, he's quite busy, but there are other doctors, other practitioners that work with Erconia, and just make sure that it's so super safe, but you want to make sure you're doing it right.
Yeah.
That serves you and serves your purpose. So make sure that you get yourself trained. You're doing it the way you've been taught and shown, and it will serve you as you need. So thank you so much, you guys. Thank you,
Thank
Dr.
you.
Bear. So
Thank you
fun.
for having me. Take care. Till next
I'll
time.
talk to you soon.
Thanks, Serena.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye.